Hi, and welcome to Gen Friends. I'm Cheri Hudson-Passy from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and with me tonight is Terry O'Connell, the Executive Director of the In-Depth Genealogist. Hi, Terry. So glad you're here tonight.
Hey, Sherry, it's good to be here.
Good to see you. And we have Christine Woodcock from Genealogy Tours of Scotland. Hi, Christine.
Hey, Cheri.
So good to have you. And we have Melissa Barker, the archive lady in the house tonight. Hey, Melissa.
Hi, Cheri. Hello, everybody. So glad to finally be here again.
Yes, Melissa has been fighting the good fight with the archives, trying to make sure the budget stays and they have money to run the archives and everything else they need. So she's been off fighting the good fight. So she hasn't been able to join us for a while. So we're glad everybody's here. So tonight, as I have a hurricane barreling down upon me, and we have other disasters around the world, we thought it might be a good idea to talk about some ideas of what to do with our paraphernalia, all of our genealogy stuff, our records, our heirlooms, any of those things that we have. What do we do with them? I know for me, I've got most of my documents scanned and on my computer and in the cloud. But what I worry about most are my heirlooms, my things that belong to my grandmother. My mom, my grandfather's medals from World War II, all those types of things. So what I usually do when we've got a storm coming, and I don't know if y'all do anything differently, but especially because in my case, there's a lot of water, with a hurricane and that type of thing. I will gather everything and stick it into tubs, put it someplace, and then put a tarp over that. And so try to protect it. I do have pictures of all of it, but I still don't want to lose any of it. So that's what I try to do. How about you guys? What do you do when you know? Well, see, with me, a hurricane's coming, and I know that the hurricane is coming. Right. But other things you don't know. So, Terry, what do you have in your area that you have to protect your stuff from?
So really, the only thing in the Midwest is really like tornadoes.
And there's not much warning.
And well, there's not much warning. And being in the city, we don't. I think I've seen one in my life.
Ah, well, that's good.
And thankfully. And we're so stupid because we don't, like, it's not normal weather for us. We were outside, like, why is all this dirt and garbage flying around? We got in the car. We drove to my mother-in-law's house to pick her up. We stopped for gas, and there was, like, tornado warnings and the thing. I'm like, oh, that's why there's garbage flying.
Oh, gosh.
We drove anyway and went to the Sox game.
Well, there'll be, I'm telling you, there will be surfers out.
Yeah.
All through this here. There will be people out surfing. And so we've got to be careful. And so, Melissa, what about you?
Well, I'm actually in the business of
yes, you are.
All archives and libraries and places like this that are repositories for records, they are pretty much required to have a disaster plan in place. I actually did a webinar for a legacy family tree called Disaster Planning for the Genealogist, and also a quick guide. But for me, the best way to plan for a disaster is to plan before it even happens. And just like you said, Cheri, digitize everything that you can. You may lose the originals, but at least you've got the information and the sense of the records intact. Right. As far as three-dimensional objects and things, you can digitize those as well. You can make a record of them that way, and go ahead and archivally box them with tissue paper and things like that, and bring them out when you want to, show people. Yeah. But that way they're already boxed, so that when something is going to happen that's coming your way, you can just pick up the boxes and go. Right. Things like house fires. My husband was an insurance adjuster for over 20 years. He has stood in front yards with many people with their houses burned to the ground, holding their hands, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, my pictures." And so my big thing is what you can do now is, if you have pictures or documents, originals, hanging on the wall or sitting on tables and frames, get them out of there and get really good copies. These days, we can get copies that look identical to the originals.
Sure.
Put the copies in the frames and hang those, because you don't want to be trying to run out of your house thinking, oh, I have to grab these off the wall. You've already got them out of there. They're in a safe deposit box or in the cloud, wherever they are. And so for me, it's starting today. Start digitizing, start doing what you can to preserve those things so that when a disaster does happen, at least you have that to go back to.
Oh, I agree. What about you, Christine?
Well, I'm in the same boat as Terry. I mean, all we get is tornadoes. And fortunately, where I am, we've had a lot of them around us, but never Brantford. So, but we did have in the spring, the river burst its banks and we were in a state of emergency. And people were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. So, I keep a lot of that stuff up on the second floor.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We have that
rather than because I learned that way.
Yeah.
And all my documents and pictures I have stored in my online storage account. So
sure.
I'm looking that way. And really, I don't have a lot in terms of heirlooms. My mom threw everything out, so I don't have a whole lot.
Yeah,
And
you
the stuff
sound like
I have
me.
stuff I have is sort of for my kids. And my daughter's a minimalist, and I went to hand her stuff, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't have room."
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We had a flood once in our basement. We used to live in New Mexico, and our basement flooded, and my boys were so sad because all of their He-Man figures got mud all over. But at least they're plastic, but still they were so sad because it just came right into the mud, and the water just came right into our basement. And
listen, He-Man had his own adventure that day.
Exactly. So you just never know. You just never know. So I do like to take those things that I treasure and make sure they're up high. I've got some family Bibles that are on display, in a case. But if we were to get floodwaters and it came into my house, it's going to crack that glass most likely and ruin. I do have pictures of that Bible. I've taken, photos of all the pertinent information and the front and all that, but it would make me so sad if it got wet. And so things like that, I try to put in bags because I know they're not going to be there for that long. They're not going to be in there for months and get ruined. So just temporarily put them in something that will keep them dry and make sure they're upstairs and because you never know.
Well, we have to also remember too, we talk about disasters. Well, there are those hurricanes and tornadoes, but what about the disaster if you just went on vacation and your ice maker water line broke and you come home to a house full of water?
That's true.
Or, or your washing machine hose broke, or different things like that. Those are disasters that we don't see coming at all.
That's true.
And
had that happen once. Sorry, go ahead, Christine. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
That happened to us. Our washing machine hose blew, and we didn't know. And my son went downstairs, and it was somewhere calf deep. So the dogs thought it was great. They had a built-in swimming pool, but all of our stuff was floating. So
yeah, we went on a vacation once to Disneyland, and our pipes broke. And we were living in a different house that had a basement, and luckily a neighbor heard water running and went in and called a disaster crew and just said, "Stay, you might as well just stay and let us deal with it," But luckily nothing was ruined because everything was upstairs. But yeah, that makes me think, man, every time I go on vacation, I need to make sure all that good stuff is upstairs too, just in case. Or maybe just never have it down there to begin with. I don't know, but. Yeah, there's so many things that we don't.
Look at that museum that just burned down, right? With all the artifacts.
Yes, it's heartbreaking.
So tragic.
You can't get that stuff back. And so, and I don't know how much they had done in order to, digitize anything or take photos or, be able to preserve any of that. So, I mean, it's just all gone now.
It is all gone, but there is a definite learning from that fire. They put a plea out for anybody that had taken pictures of their exhibits to send them in. How about all those places that won't let you take pictures?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll have
a good point.
Let us take those pictures. You can do the no flash, whatever rules, but if something happens, you'll have people coming to your, like this is what we had from there.
That's a good point.
And another type of disaster that we should think about too, and it's one that Dick Eastman always talks about on the first of every month, is to back up your computer. You digitize everything, but if you aren't backing it up and making sure it's secure, what good is it? So on the first of every month, in his newsletter, he talks about that.
That's right. To back everything up and to have it in the cloud or have, what is it, 3? They're telling you to do 3 different things, So off the computer somewhere, maybe in a hard drive, a portable hard drive, and then in the cloud, and maybe in somebody else's house. You can make a copy and keep it in somebody else's house. So that because the worst thing would be you hear about people saying, "Oh, my computer crashed and I lost everything, years and years and years of work." Would be heartbreaking. It'd be heartbreaking. And some people say, "Well, it's okay because all of mine is saved on my tree." Well, like on their ancestry tree or something. Well, what if that goes down? That you can't use that as your backup because you can't guarantee they're going to always be up.
Not only that, but the red. I mean, everything that's on there is compressed, so you don't get. It's not like you can download it and make it the way it was because it just doesn't work that way.
It's true. It's true.
You're losing quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So none of you have been through a disaster where you had to learn the hard way and lose anything. That's good. I'm glad.
We flooded in our basement. My office was down there. So we had lived here maybe 8 years and had never had water in the basement. And it was funny because I was driving my daughter to school and I'm like, I can't believe they're going to have school. Like, this is dangerous for us to even be out in. We got halfway to school and they got a tweet that classes were canceled. You couldn't call us, but you tweeted us, right?
Oh, yeah. How nice.
Like, turn around and go home. And I was like, we're all excited. We're like, we're going back to bed. Like, it's going to be a good day. And I'm like, let me just peek into the basement. And it was ankle deep.
Oh.
But we were able to get down there and get most of it out. Like the computer I'm on now was down there.
Oh gosh.
And it was brand new. I would have been devastated if I had lost that. There were some pictures of my brother-in-law who passed away when he was younger down there. We were able to separate them and dry them out.
Oh, that's good.
Have them. That was very hard. Like, oh my God, if we lose these all. But we lost a lot of stuff, but it was more house junk instead of my. I think I had everything was high enough that we were able to get it out as the rain kept coming and we were pulling it all upstairs.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah. I remember the last hurricane that was here. There was a lot of places that people's pictures were wet, and there was a lot of flooding. The last time we had a hurricane come through, and it was just because the ground was saturated. And it wasn't even really close to shore. The flooding was mostly all inland, but there was a lot of people whose photos were just totally wet. But it was amazing to me that there are ways that you can dry those out. And I know that there were a couple of the photo restoration places that were doing some of it for free for people. Yeah. Some of those just precious photos that, they were just heartbroken over. They were saying, bring them in and we will dry them out for you and we'll see if we can restore them for you. So, you hear these stories and then these heroes come along, and they help people out and try to fix what they thought was lost, So that was good. So
a really good tip for genealogists is one that we use in the archives world is at the end of the day, when we're done with our work, when you're working in boxes of records, sometimes you have things everywhere, laying everywhere. One of the rules in the archives world is that when you leave for home, when you leave your work for the day, is to make sure that there's nothing on the floor.
Oh,
right.
If we're working on records, boxes of records, like a big collection or something, regardless of where we're at in that process, if there are boxes sitting on the floor, we pick them up and put them on the table before we leave to go home, because we never know if we're going to come back to a bursted pipe that's, flooded or something like that. So that's why I tell genealogists, when you're done for the day, I know you're going to come back to it tomorrow, but if there's a box on the floor, just pick it up and put it on the bed or pick it up and put it on a counter or something, because at least that won't get touched if something were to happen.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's a really great tip, because I can't tell you how many times that I've sat and, you have piles and piles and piles and piles, and even my dog could have come along and decided to chew something, So just to pick that up and get it out of the way, that's a really good tip. It's a really, really good tip. Any other tips that you have that maybe we could, especially for those of us that are thinking about maybe having to evacuate in the next few days, or
the biggest thing is to remember that your safety is most important. Sometimes you just have to let go.
That's true.
Go.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, nobody would appreciate you dying saving onto grandma's picture.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's really
Yes.
true. I can see me now. No,
No.
I can't leave. But I need that. Yeah, it wouldn't be. Nobody would be impressed with it.
We could appreciate it, but we'd be like, boy, was she stupid.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we'd all understand. We'd all understand.
Yes, we would.
Just remember that when you see me on the news. I was arrested because I won't evacuate because I'm holding on to stuff. Oh my gosh.
Just remember, if you're at that point, your social security number goes on your arm.
Oh, wow.
I know, because they tell you if you don't leave, don't call us because we're not coming. You
Right.
know? So
Mark your body so we can ID you.
exactly. Yeah. Well, we'd be out of here
Well,
before
we
we
had
get
a
that.
happy conversation tonight.
Yeah. We'd be out of here before it would get that bad. I promise you. I'd be out of here. I'd be out of here. So, but there's a lot of folks in this position in the next few days, and there will be. There's always something going on where my heart always goes out to those people with, especially a fire. All of a sudden, boom, you got to get out of there really quickly, and there's just no time to really, or even the tornado. What do you do? It just comes, and you don't have time. So, at least I feel with a hurricane, you've got a little bit of time to prepare and that. But like we're saying, if we will prepare ahead of time, then those things, even if the physical things get destroyed, we have photos and that kind of thing, so that we can at least remember it.
Yeah. And I think another big thing too, I know there are a lot of people who don't want to leave because they're afraid of the looters. Remember, you have insurance.
Exactly.
Who cares if they loot? Your safety is most important.
That's true. And those looters could, if they don't know your home, and they can come into your home with you there, and that is not safe. So I would rather a looter come in when I'm not home and try to come in and me going, hey, surprise. What are you doing in my house? Leave Granny's photo alone. You don't need that. So,
can we just take a picture for a blog post?
My ride through the hurricane. my next blog post. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So Melissa, in the archives though, do you have any, I know those totes probably aren't archival quality, but do you put things in to save them from water?
The main thing for us in an archives from water is keeping things so many inches off the ground. If you have even more of a flood than that, you can't get it up high enough.
Right.
But the main thing is to just keep everything up off the floor. Our shelving units, the bottom from the floor up to the first shelf, there's probably about 5-6 inches there, and so that. Yeah. And we keep all the boxes off the floor. But I would like to actually talk about a different kind of disaster, but it could also be considered a disaster. We're talking about natural disasters and some man-made disasters, but there's another disaster that lurks with all genealogists, and that is the disaster of your children and grandchildren throwing away your records.
Oh my gosh, that is a disaster. You're right.
And this really came home to me about a year or so ago. I had a couple of ladies that walked into the archives, and they had 2 big boxes of binders, 3-ring binders full of research, and that belonged to their mother, and their mother at the time was in the nursing home, and they were cleaning out her house. And so they brought them to the archives, and they said, do you want these? If not, we're taking them to the landfill right after we leave you. And it was this woman's lifelong genealogy research. She had been doing research for over 50 years. And there's probably 25 3-ring binders of all different surnames. And the thing is that none of these surnames were from this area. And so I had to make a decision on the spot. Do I take these, even though they have nothing to do with Houston County or even Tennessee? Or do I let them go? And what did I do? I took them. And I still have them. I'm trying to place them within archives because a lot of these are from like Pennsylvania and up north. But these two daughters.
Tell us some of the names. Maybe somebody watching Gen Friends will recognize
the names. I don't have the names. I'll tell you, I'll send you the names of the surnames, and maybe you can put it in the notes.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? If somebody watching Gen Friends went, oh, I know those names.
That happens more than you probably realize, you know, and they don't do it out of meanness. It's just doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so then when they're cleaning after someone's passed away or whatever they're cleaning out, oh, well, this is just mom's old hobby garbage stuff, you know, throw that away. Yeah. And so to me, that's a disaster. You know, you should now be planning, or even if you can bring yourself to do it, letting go of some of this stuff and getting it in the hands of an archives or a library or somewhere so that it can be preserved.
Yeah.
You know, my girlfriend and her husband have made a sort of a mission of going to garage sales and estate sales, and the number of stuff that people put out, they've been able to, you know, they'll buy the whole lot for like $25 or something, and then she comes home and tracks people living ancestors down.
Oh, that's
nice. Give it back to them. Like, it's
just kind of give me chills. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because the first 3 or 4 that she did all had a connection to her own family, which was kind of bizarre.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, and you know, so, and it's funny now because Jim will go out to a garage sale and I'll come home and he'll go, here's something for you to do. And she's like, yeah, like I was looking for something.
But how wonderful to save that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what Melissa said. People have just, you know, they don't know what to do with it. So it goes out in a garage sale.
Yeah.
Right.
When my I probably have told you all this before, but when my great aunt passed away, my mom and dad went to the funeral, you know, and I had trained them well. If you ever see anything, you know, when you go visit, take it, take photos, you know, whatever. Don't let anybody throw anything away. So my dad walked past this box. It was going out to the trash, and it had all these Bibles and other records in it. She had, this was my great aunt, so she had her mother's Bible, which was my great great grandmother. So she had her Bible. And then my great aunt's Bible was full of newspaper clippings, all these obituaries. I opened it up and they just fluttered out. So, yeah, they were just going to throw them away. Just all sorts of her husband's ribbons from the military, just all sorts of stuff that they were throwing away because, you know, she was gone and that was her thing, the genealogy. And so I'm just glad that my dad saw it and grabbed it and mailed it to me. So, yeah. So I agree with you, Melissa. That is a disaster.
It is.
So I think a good point is for us as genealogists is to make a plan. Where are you going to send this stuff? Like if something happens, so your family knows what to do with it. So we know Allen County will take, if you've got it written out.
Right.
Like they don't want your records. They just want the compilation of it. And Newberry here in Chicago will do the same thing.
Well, that's good to know. Good.
So, you know, people need to reach out to their local genealogy libraries and see who's willing to take what and have that already put together.
Sure. And I think it's one of the last things we think of. But we work so hard and gathering all these records, and for it just to get thrown in the trash can is so sad. And, you know, a lot of those people spent a lot of money because things weren't online and it was costing a fortune to get those records sent to them. Not that, you know, everything is cheap today. I'm not saying that, but all those self-addressed stamped envelopes and, you know, ordering all those records back then cost a fortune. Right. And, you know, now that generation is dying off and people are throwing their things away. So, you know, I've got some, for some people that I've been asking, what happened? What happened to your mom's records? You know, what did you do with them? And I, you know, I'm not getting response because I know she had binders and binders and binders of stuff. And I don't know because they haven't turned them into the local genealogical society. And there's several of us that are descendants that are trying to figure out where all that research went. We just don't know.
When I did family books for each of our lines, I made sure that a copy went to our local society and also to the society where the family originated, so that there was, you know, at least there's a couple of copies. Yeah,
that's a smart idea. That's really good. Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, do we have any more tips or any more ideas for when disaster is getting ready to strike. Actually, how to prepare ahead of time. Really, this is what we need to do, and not wait until disaster.
We make plans for everything else. We make research plans, and we just don't think to make disaster plans, right?
You're absolutely right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That needs to be, on our to-do list, because we never know. We never know. And all of us, no matter where we live, there's something that can happen, There's something that can happen. And I don't think there's anywhere on earth that you're completely safe. You just never know when the rivers are going to overflow, or tornado's going to hit, or an earthquake's going to strike, or a tsunami, or, there's so many things, or a hurricane. Or Florence, we're calling this one. Florence could just come out of nowhere and strike. So, make those disaster plans, and also make those plans for what you're going to do with your research for when you're no longer able to research, or when you're no longer around. So you need to have a plan for that as well, so that, as Melissa pointed out, you don't have that kind of disaster and all your hard work isn't just thrown in the trash can, or people don't know how to get onto your computer and find all the stuff that you've stored online. We need to make sure people have our passwords and our to our computers, to our cloud, to our online trees, all that kind of stuff. We need to make sure that we have that kind of thing. Genealogy will written out, so people know where it is. So,
you guys are all friends with Peggy Lorton on
Yes.
I love it. Her When Peggy Wakes Up Dead book.
Yes, she does. When Peggy, yeah, that's right. She's got that book all written out. I love it. She should market that.
Absolutely.
It's like, I told my husband, he laughed. He's like, that is brilliant.
It is brilliant. And she could market it. She really could. She could put together a prototype and we'd all buy it, wouldn't we?
We'd just go in and fill it out.
Exactly. It would make it so much easier on all of us. We need to kind of put a bug in her ear. Hey, Peggy, if you're watching Gen Friends, we would like to have a book. So all we have to do is fill it out.
Right.
She's done all the work. Now we can just fill in the blank. So
exactly.
That would be a plus. We'll have to get a hold of her on that one. So anyway, does anybody else have any last minute tips or thoughts on preparing for disasters, keeping your stuff safe? Do you think we covered everything?
Yeah.
I think we did. I think that's it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ideas and your tips and your thoughts. And we want everybody to stay safe all the time, and your genealogy stuff to stay safe. So think about the things that we've talked about tonight. Make sure everything you have is protected, from your computer to your databases to your things that you have at home, those things that are precious to you. Make sure you have everything digitized, filmed, write the stories about what they are, and make a plan for your genealogy and what you're going to do with it, and what you would have done with it once you're no longer here to work on it. So, and with that, I'd like to say thanks again, and good night to everybody on the panel, and good night to everybody watching. We'll see you again on Gen Friends. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.